Diplomatic ties severed as a regional feud intensifies. Saudi Arabia cuts relations with Iran and tells diplomats to leave the kingdom. This hour, how this latest row will impact an already volatile region. Also ahead, free of ISIS but left in ruins. CNN gets a rare look inside Ramadi after Iraqi special forces drive the terror group out. And disturbing questions in Hong Kong after 5 booksellers critical of China go missing. We'll have the latest on the investigation.
Live from CNN Centre, this is Connect the World.
Hello, I'm Lynda Kinkade and welcome to Connect the World. Right now, we are seeing major losses on the US markets after a day of global sell-offs. The Dow has already plunged more than 400 points and there are losses on the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq too. Elsewhere, stocks from Tokyo to London have all been in the red. This after weak manufacturing data from China, which is fueling fears about the slowdown in the world's second largest economy. We are watching the situation on the markets and we will have more later on Connect the World. A row between 2 Middle Eastern rivals is raising fears of sectarian violence across the region. There are more angry protests in Tehran over Saudi Arabia's execution on Saturday of a leading Shiite cleric. Riyadh cut diplomatic ties with Iran after protesters torched the Saudi embassy in Tehran. Now, Bahrain has given Iranian diplomats 48 hours to leave the country. Sudan has also severed ties with Iran, and the United Arab Emirates is downgrading its relations with the Islamic Republic. Senior international correspondent Fred Pleitgen is following this diplomatic fallout and joins us from London. Fred, we're seeing this growing diplomatic row, and it seems to be quickly escalating.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And the pace at which the diplomatic row is escalating is certainly something that's troubling to the U.S., troubling to many other countries internationally as well. One of the things that's happened today is that according to the Reuters news agency, the Saudis have now gone a step further and are severing all economic ties with Iran, are stopping all flights between the two countries, and also not allowing Saudi citizens to go to Iran anymore. One of the things, however, that the Saudis have said is that Hajj pilgrims from Iran will still be allowed to travel to Saudi Arabia. Nevertheless, we see further escalation after this weekend that saw the ties between these two nations deteriorate very quickly, starting, of course, with the execution of that Shiite cleric, then going to the ransacking of the Saudi embassy. And this is really something where you saw an interesting reaction from the Iranians. On the one hand, you had a lot of criticism, of course, of the execution of that Shiite cleric, but you also have top-level Iranian politicians, like, for instance, President Hassan Rouhani saying that storming the embassy was wrong and that those who were involved will be brought to justice. The Iranians announcing that they've arrested some 40 people in relation to the storming of that embassy. However, apparently that is not enough at this point in time for the Saudis, who are upping the ante. And as we've seen, some other predominantly Sunni countries are also following suit, like, for instance, Sudan and also the United Arab Emirates, who have downgraded their ties.
And Fred, we understand that Russia is saying it could act as a mediator. What role could it play, and what history does it have with dealing with these two countries?
Well, you know, it's unclear what role Russia could actually play. Russia did offer to play a mediator between these two nations. Also, however, in that same press release said that to them, it's absolutely clear that the host nations must see to it that embassies in their countries are protected. One of the things that'll make it very difficult for the Russians to hold much sway, for instance, with the Saudis, is the fact that in the Syria conflict, they are bombing on the side of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. That is not something that sits well with the Saudis, who are opposed to the Assad regime. Now, of course, there's also other countries who are doing their best to try and get these relations at least to come to a point where these countries talk to each other again. The U.S. is calling on both sides to go back to the path of democracies. The Chinese have said that they're very concerned. They also have major interests in the Middle East, and the European Union has done the same as well. So there is a great deal of concern internationally. It's unclear which country or which persons could successfully mediate in this conflict, but it seems as though at this point in time, more is pointing towards escalation rather than de-escalation, Linda.
Yeah, it's not looking good. Fred Pleitgen in London, thank you very much for staying across that for us.